wanted to build a trading bot leveraging your API. I've got it in dark mode, light mode, and then my favorite mode, disco mode.
Party mode.
I love this.
Built this week, breaking it down. Built this week, we show you how. A fresh idea, a clever tweak. You locked in, you built this week.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Built This Week, the podcast where we share what we're building, how we're building it, and how it affects the world of AI and startups. I'm Sam Nadler, co-founder of Rise Labs, and I'm joined every week by my friend, business partner, and co-host Jordan Metzner. And this week we have two special guests, Jake and Emily from Product at Public. Please introduce yourself, Jake and Emily, and then we'll get into the tool we built this week, the public tool, and then also some hot AI news.
Awesome. I'll get started. Thanks for having us. I'm Emily, head of product at Public, and have been really responsible for all of our trading. So the API, which we'll talk about shortly, built and can really speak to.
I'm Jake. Thanks for having us, Sam. I lead AI at Public. All of our generative AI offerings, alpha, kind of throughout the app. So thanks for having us. Excited to get started.
Great. Awesome. Well, Jordan, like every week, we try and highlight a tool we built in the last week. This week uses the Public API. Do you want to walk us through, just what you were thinking about before the build, what the tool does, and then lastly, how you built it? And we have, obviously the team, the experts here, Emily and Jake, to give us feedback and maybe point out things we could have done better or things we missed or just overall how we did.
Cool. So maybe just a little background, at least from my perspective. I am no expert stock trader. So, my expertise in trading stocks is kind of my own personal portfolio. I'm not a day trader. I don't really spend my time trading stocks on a daily basis, but I think kind of that lends to just how easy it was for me to leverage the Public API to get an app working. And I'd love to tell you guys just a little bit about that. I mean, it just took me a few days to get the entire app working end to end. But maybe before I jump into that, Emily, can you just maybe tell people a little bit about what is Public?
Yep, of course. So Public is a brokerage that makes, is for those who invest and take it seriously. We offer the whole suite of asset classes, so stocks, bonds, treasuries, options, crypto, as well as unique yield products like bond account, treasury account, and HICA. And so you can open brokerage accounts, Roth IRAs, and more. Okay,
cool. And then maybe a little bit about kind of the API and what its use cases are and whatnot.
Of course. So we recently launched our API. It's really to think of it as like a fourth front end for people who don't necessarily want to use our UI, but really want execution capabilities and the ability to programmatically access their account. We started sort of with our core capabilities. So think trading, options, trading equities. We are continuously building out that roadmap, adding on trading crypto, trading bonds, money movements. And then we're also adding technical functionality. So right now it's really a REST interface, but we are working on WebSockets, MCP, Python SDKs, and more.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So I guess a little background, I didn't really have, too much to go on. I wanted to build a trading bot leveraging your API. So maybe I can just jump in to show you guys what I built. And you haven't seen this yet. So
no, we're excited.
Okay, so I was getting too aggressive, so I had to stop trading. But essentially, the way the trading bot works is it leverages the Public API as well as ChatGPT. And I built actually the entire app in Replit. I think total build time was probably somewhere between 3 to 6 hours total. I vibe coded the whole thing, so all of the Public API was pretty much available within Replit's knowledge base. When I wanted to do certain things, I kind of copy and pasted certain things from the Public documentation. Let me just tell you how our system works. What it does is it reads the price of a certain stock. In this case, I chose IBIT, which is the Bitcoin ETF. And then what it does is it sends that price plus how much money I have in my portfolio and how much risk I want to take over to ChatGPT. And then ChatGPT actually does some analysis and decides whether or not I should buy or sell. And then once it does that, you can see here, ChatGPT is making different confidence intervals. Here, I think it has every 30 seconds I have it running. So it'll go in, ChatGPT, tell it about the price, tell it about my portfolio, tell it about how much units I have currently. I also have in my settings, I have a stop loss percentage, so I make sure I never run out of money. I kind of have a percentage of max size position. I also can change my aggressivity levels, etc. And I have kind of a float available, like in my algorithm. So if I don't I never can run out of money. I always have like a little extra cash on hand in case like the market goes like, like really to the upside where I want to make a buying decision. And not all the pages like work perfectly, but most of them should work. I kind of did some like AI predictions, so I guess this one doesn't work perfectly, but so to kind of predict like how well this will work. But I have kind of all the technical performance and live monitoring, and then here's my dashboard. And then here inside the public account, so what you can see is, essentially here it started to buy shares and sell shares and buy shares and sell shares, and it just kind of went a little bit crazy. So after it bought and sold 4 shares today, where it looks like I lost about 11 cents in the trade, I turned it off because we were going to do the episode, so I didn't want it to go too crazy. And then I got 2 more little bits, so I built it all with Replit. That's actually doing all the front end and the back end. And then ChatGPT API, I've got it in dark mode, light mode, and then my favorite mode, disco mode.
Party mode.
I love this.
All right. What do you think?
They should make disco mode a default option on all browsers.
Okay, on all web apps.
Yeah.
That was the feature Jordan was most proud of.
No, Jordan, I love this. This is awesome. Obviously, you're pulling in from Public's APIs, portfolio, orders, history, etc. But it also seems like you're piping in from other data sources that Public doesn't yet have available via APIs. So some of the potentially predictions, it sounds like maybe on the analytics side, you have some stuff around its ratings, performance, analyst reports, etc. So can you speak to sort of what else you're using?
I didn't want to be overly aggressive in the rate limits on calling the API for pricing too aggressively. So I found a public API that was free that I could call like every 15 seconds to get the price, called Polygon. So I chose that to get the price. And if I run over my rate limit, I have backup as public as my backup. So I get the price about every 15 seconds. And then we use ChatGPT APIs all the time. So I created a new API key with ChatGPT. I created a public API key as well. And then I created a prompt basically kind of going through ChatGPT, telling it where I was, what my aggressive levels were, what my portfolio was at. And since we're only trading one stock, it's pretty easy. I'm sure like this would get infinitely harder as you started to trade more and more stocks. But in theory, you could parallelize it. So you could have a bot that only focuses on each stock. And, I don't know how good ChatGPT is at like making money. So it'd be fun to run it like for a few weeks to see like how well it does. But, and especially like this stock is like pretty highly volatile. So, probably like the more volatile it is, that might be like better or worse for the returns. And it's hard to say because I really don't know. And I'm not like a pro day trader or anything like that. And I just kind of let ChatGPT do its thing. I had the prompt ready, but I don't know where it is now. But, from a high level, I just give it like what I have in my portfolio, how much shares I have currently, how aggressive I want to be, my trading history, and then like how much buying power I have and how much money I want to save and like my extra float just in case kind of thing.
That's awesome. And just saying it out loud, obviously this is not investment advice, but it's fun to be able to show something like this with a more volatile stock since you can really see and showcase the algorithm.
Totally not investment advice. This is not investment advice. I would not trade real money at scale using this algorithm. But the cool part is you could trade it against a history and you could kind of see how well it would perform. It'd be good to at least inform traders on whether or not there'd be an opportunity to make a trade. And I think that's probably like the takeaway here is that, you could use it to inform you to decide like, hey, this is a good opportunity to come in or maybe a good opportunity to come out.
Absolutely. We talk a lot about trigger-based trading, right? When a price hits a high or a low, when it grows by X%. And so all of those things are really helpful, maybe an inflation report, an economic report, et cetera. And so being able to sort of trigger trades based on things is exactly what you're showcasing and something a lot of our customers, like and expect. Another question for you is obviously you built this with a bunch of REST APIs. How would this evolve, change if you had WebSockets for prices or WebSockets for order updates?
Yeah. So, the more streaming, the better, I think, because then we can stream the price rather than call the price without rate limits and things like that. So, it just allows the entire thing to be smoother and smoother. One thing I think I was going to ask Jake about, I just chose ChatGPT, the newest API as the API of choice, but I don't really know enough about, does Gemini do a better job at kind of financial analysis for trading, or does Claude, Opus or Sonnet have better analysis for trading? So that might be another thing to do would be see if you could have it run against multiple models and get their feedback and try to do some consensus. I think if I was able to stream, I'd be able to do more trades even faster. I also presume the cost of trading is zero. And it is, but every time you're in a trade and out of trade, there is some time that it does take, even though obviously it's pretty quick, but every trade is an opportunity cost against another trade, right? So if you're trading in one thing and then something happens somewhere else. And so, again, going back to the simplicity of having only one stock is really easy to follow. When you have a more diverse portfolio, the complexity scales, obviously. Anybody can do this, this was Replit, just talking to Replit. I probably used ChatGPT maybe to write a PRD or something like that, to write a product requirements doc. But, it stored all my API keys.
No, yeah, it's really interesting. I guess, curious to hear whether you tried out any kind of multimodal, prompts with ChatGPT. So, did sending a picture of the price chart versus sending the metrics. So, in experiments with this that I've done, something that's really interesting on your question around the model is if you use a multimodal model, you can actually send it a picture of the price chart and even multiple timeframes of the price chart. And it does a really good job. The models have improved a lot over the last couple of years, but it does a super good job actually of doing visual price action analysis. And you can even overlay indicators and whatnot. And it and it can really actually process pretty efficiently. And so, that combined with something like a more agentic model, like a Sonnet 3.5 or Sonnet 4, thinking type model that kind of puts a lot of tokens behind its decisions would be kind of interesting for sure, as an easy next step.
Well, that's the trade-off, right? If you want to give the model more time to think, then you trade off kind of how fast you can run trades. So, it really would depend on your strategy of how frequently you want to trade. I try to build something that was high frequency, I guess, in the sense of for me, every 15, 30 seconds is pretty high frequency. But yeah, if you were just trading once a day or even, every hour or something like that, you might want to give a model, 5, 10, 15 minutes to make a decision and to really think deeply. One question about the charts, does it work the same if you give it the JSON based history of the price action? Because one thing I did was my first build, I just gave it how much money I had. And then I started to improve it by giving it my trade history, which kind of gave it some influence of where I've bought it before. I didn't give it full price history, but to your point, I understand I guess it can understand kind of the dips and valleys and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely giving it context of any kind helps, right? Definitely when I played with this, it had a lot of trouble with time frames. So dialing in and out of, are we on a 2-minute here or 2 hour? But yeah, giving it any historic context is definitely helpful. And I think I saw something today that one of the models, I think maybe is a Claude model, is now 1 million token context window. So they can handle an insane amount of historic context, multiple time frames, all in one shot now. So something to think about there too. Loading up pretty much every time frame.
Yeah, to your point. Yeah, I wonder how much more data, I don't know where the diminishing returns are, but how much more data you can give it on the price behavior to get more insight, depending on your trade strategy as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard like a quick rule of thumb is somewhere around 75% of the stated context windows when you get degradation. But just for like frame of reference, the Great Gatsby is like 60,000 tokens. So 1 million is a lot.
I wonder if I could just do like a Great Gatsby trade strategy, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Any other questions maybe from Sam, Emily, Jake about kind of what I built here?
Only question for me is obviously you built this in 3 to 6 hours. Like, what were the things that you'd want to add on if you had a little bit more time or dive deeper into?
Yeah, I mean, I think like in one way, like it's really easy to make a trading bot or like leverage the public API to, build a web app. If I had more time, I would have probably built like a backend, like probably connected it to Supabase and built like my own React front end and self-hosted it and like been able to run some cron jobs like probably a little bit better. One thing I learned is that I don't know when the market open and closes. I mean, I know on a daily basis when the market open and closes, but there's actually holidays and like Labor Day is coming up, for example. So market time would be a good API that I learned, because otherwise I have to like kind of figure out if the market's open or if like figure out through another format or just presume it's always open unless it's not type of thing. So that was something I learned, like thinking about, like I didn't really think about it. I just thought it's always open the same time. And then you start to think, oh no, it closes on the holidays. And so
different asset classes have different market hours. So the bond market actually is different than equity market. Deposit timeframes can be different on holidays. And so having an API to pull that all in and handle that correctly is a good idea.
Oh yeah, that'd be super cool. But yeah, I didn't know the markets trade at different times and like after hours markets and like I didn't know if I could trade after hours or not, but like, maybe I can for a little bit of period of time. So yeah, that'd be cool to know.
You can for next time.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, anyway, I don't think I made much money. I don't think I lost much money. I think I did okay. But
yeah,
overall,
what is
really
the
fun.
final outcome in I think just a few hours? Are you up or down?
On your portfolio, let's just see what that looks like. I think you started with $300 and you're at $299. So
okay,
we're
right. All right, not bad.
Not so bad.
ChatGPT didn't know it only got 2 round trip trades a day when it started, so it wasn't optimizing that way.
But if you look, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, I made a lot of trades here, right? 10, 12 trades or something like that. So when making that many trades, to say that I'm break even is actually pretty good, I would say.
Totally.
Yeah.
Especially because I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Jordan. We did cover just like a brief intro about Public, but if you guys don't mind, I'd love to hear like kind of the wider perspective of Public and Jake, like how you're applying generative AI and what your role entails.
Yeah, for sure. I guess I can give a little quick intro on Public and then dial into the AI stuff. So, we think about like Public as kind of the home for modern investors. So, I think generally the landscape has kind of 2 type of tech forward incumbents. You've got kind of robo advisors and you've got self-directed kind of brokerages. When you're looking at higher net worth individuals and more sophisticated investors, it's not always true that you want one or the other. Sometimes you want to be able to directly manage your accounts and sometimes you want to have a little bit of help. And so, we see kind of the modern, the inevitability of this whole kind of platform shift to round out to something where people can dial into their own preferred experience, still have access to managed solutions, but also not have to, go through a wealth advisor at Morgan Stanley just to initiate a transfer, right? And one of the big pillars we kind of see in what the modern, sophisticated investing platform needs to have is a solid focus on AI native features. I mean, we know that that's going to be a huge part of the future. We've been kind of a first mover, I guess, amongst peers in that space. We launched Alpha, which is our investment research bot, powered originally by GPT-4, just a couple months after, ChatGPT released. We were one of the first ChatGPT plugins. And then after we released Alpha, we introduced probably like 6 or 7 different AI powered features across the brokerage experience. We launched 1 or 2 kind of external products as well that were, vertically focused on AI. So we've done everything from real-time, event summarization, earnings call summaries,
Why is it moving?
portfolio construction, explaining, why stocks, your portfolio market's moving. And we've kind of experimented a lot in the space. And we think we've gotten to a place now, I think, where we've identified what we see as the big value drivers for, AI native, kind of the next phase of true value unlock in the space. So one of the big opportunities we see is obviously just summarization. There's so much unstructured content in this space between news cycles for stocks that you own, the market macro as a whole, and then, just dialing into what's actually important for your portfolio and getting insights out of all of that kind of jargon that's, spewing out of the news cycle. And so we think AI has a real value add there. A second vertical we think is really interesting is assisting with portfolio construction, helping to kind of manage investments with the help of generative AI.
And an extension of that, right, is discovery. So how can we help you find assets that are relevant for you or that meet your needs versus your traditional, search where you have to be searching for the exact symbols that you're looking for?
Yeah. So as an example, we started experimenting with this feature we're calling generated assets. But the idea is to let investors build custom indexes out of natural language kind of queries. So kind of imagine whatever strategy you want to come up with, you can go back and forth with an AI and dial in kind of an LLM agentic assisted index that, eventually will hopefully be able to manage on an ongoing kind of basis. Imagine stuff like, I want to invest in GLP-1s, or I want to do an anti-tariff hedge or something like that. And we see that kind of filling a gap in the space between your kind of traditional low cost ETFs and then, your kind of higher cost thematic ETFs, or even somewhere like just like a personal wealth advisor. We think that's a really interesting space as well. And we're working a lot there.
Yeah, just I guess a little bit more maybe about Public and kind of what's its mission and really what the goal of the company is.
As I mentioned, Public is really a retail brokerage app, and our goal is really to meet the needs of investors that take investing seriously. And so over the last year, we spent a lot of time on building that foundation, adding a variety of asset classes, adding fractional bonds, being the first to do that, adding, a treasury ladder, really meeting the market with yield products, as well as also expanding on the more active trader front. So adding options, adding margin investing. And I think what we're really looking forward to over the next year is how we build upon that and really leverage AI to deliver unique value propositions that we really feel like Public can deliver in a way that the market has not seen yet and hasn't had. And so I know Jake talked about generated assets. I think there's opportunities for us to create more portfolios across asset classes, expand that into other account types. So rather than it just be your brokerage account, maybe using those in sort of trust entity, other account types, and really helping meet the needs of that investor that's looking to grow their wealth for the long term in a really current time frame way versus that, historical traditional brokerage where you have to call an advisor and get advice.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Let's jump into it. I think that was great. We recorded last week, the same day ChatGPT-5 came out. So it's been almost a week now since it came out. And it's been quite controversial for many different reasons. Altman's obviously been pretty loud about trying to make changes quickly to satisfy the public. But just curious, maybe to Sam, Jake, and Emily, kind of what have your been experiences on using ChatGPT-5, and do you like it better or worse? I've heard mixed opinions from pretty much everyone I know.
For me, it's been a little frustrating. There's been times, and I know this auto fast thinking feature has come out, but there's been times when I've gotten the quick answer when I want the thinking answer, and it's just, I've had to, reprompt to think deeply, and just there's been, I feel, more back and forth. Whereas previously I could just pick the model that I thought best suited my needs right away. What about you all, Jake and Emily? Have you had much experience with GPT-5 in the past 6 days?
I think I definitely kind of echo some of your struggles with it. I don't think I've sent it a single prompt where it didn't try to just split test thinking mode and quick mode. So I don't know. It sounded like from the article too that I don't know if the router was even really working when they launched, but it sounds like they've been dialing it in. I thought another interesting part from the article was that some customers kind of were mourning the loss of the GPT-4o's personality. and that, Altman acknowledged basically that, we're going to ultimately have to get to a point where managing the personality of your model is something that's on like the customer side rather than on like a model selector kind of front, which is pretty funny. And I think it said something also about like some funeral in San Francisco for Sonnet 3.5.
I think it's the same. I think they really wanted, to try to solve everyone's needs and sort of take the decisions out of your hands. And I think it's realizing that was probably done a little prematurely for where the product was, and people are wanting that flexibility and that control back.
What about that it could be a cost savings mechanism where basically customers are using expensive models to do low quality tasks, and that's costing them a lot of money. And so, in fact, they want to make the decision on which, how much resources to put towards a query, which will allow them to save a lot of money considering the scale.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good point. I'm supportive of that, especially when you think through the impact on the environment of all of everything that's being run. But I think this ecosystem has been evolving so rapidly, and so all of us just expect so much from them. And so, unfortunately, if you want to make that decision, great, but it needs to be done in a product that's pretty robust and still doesn't feel like a step down to all of our users. And I think, unfortunately, that's not what happened here.
I was going to say, it's definitely hard for them to avoid the buildup of hype. It's been a while, people waiting on GPT-5. And I think the allure of the name, definitely kind of maybe got out of hand for them as far as, what they were able to actually deliver. I know that I heard it conflated with, that's AGI when we hit GPT-5 and stuff like that for at least, 6 months. So, for it to be kind of a router adjustment, cost saving, slightly different model was always going to be a disappointment regardless of what broke on day one.
It's disappointing. It's not a better coding algorithm. And it didn't beat, the Anthropic model. So it seems like everyone's got to get back to work.
I do want to transition to the next. I do have 3 PMs on this call. Jordan, you were excited about this post. I don't know what platform it was from, that Shopify is requiring vibe coding in all PM interview processes. Do you think that's fair? Do you think that's necessary? Do you think that's ridiculous? What are your thoughts here?
No, it seems like so obvious. How could you not ask, a PM to vibe code in an interview? Just like, how could you not ask a developer to use AI to code an interview now? And it almost be, the equivalent of asking someone to do, complicated math without a calculator just to see if they could, do it by hand. And so, yeah, it seems like so obvious. So this seems like another opportunity space, but also just seems like, the way of hiring and the way of building is changing so quickly, at least in, what is our vertical, which is, product development. And I think everybody becomes a product manager, and then product manager also becomes everybody. So I don't know, there's a huge opportunity to open up here. Curious what Emily's thoughts are, especially as leading product teams.
Totally. I mean, I think every day, right, our CEOs are saying, how can everyone at the company use AI more efficiently to accelerate their job and make it better? And so I think this is just, to your point, a no-brainer example. How can you do some of the work? How can you prototype? How can you put something in and do the low-hanging fruit to put something in front, and then have the team and the folks that you hired to really code do the more complex architecture side of the house.
Yeah. What about you, Jake?
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it evolves. Obviously, I have a technical background and a product manager. And so it's always, I guess, been helpful for me, especially scoping AI features to understand feasibility. So I think having a technical angle to any PM is definitely helpful as we move into, having to manage a lot more AI style kind of development. But I think it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. The specific use of vibe coding from a PM. I think today, PM's vibe coded prototype, the code's not going to go so far as to maybe reach production. I think there may be some, developer pushback, and I don't know how reusable it's all going to be. I think, Replit, Cursor, very good at using standard UI component libraries, Shed, CN, whatever. And so a lot of it ends up being throwaway code, but that can be very helpful in iterating through design cycles really quickly, not having to involve a bunch of different parties, communication overhead, and getting from idea to something that's executable super quickly with one person. I think that's where the real time value leverage is right now. But I wonder how it'll evolve. into actually, involving PMs in production code.
Yeah. And I think to Jake's point, right, like it also depends on what you're building because we are a brokerage and we're responsible for investing in folks' money. Obviously, like making me vibe code something that we're going to put into production that directly impacts their withdrawals, funds, whatever it may be, it's pretty risky. But obviously, if I was vibe coding a Slack integration around some product updates, that's a lot less risky. And so I think we still have to figure out the balance of when to use it, when it's just a prototype, and when it can really go live and be production.
Yeah, I'm curious how much of a signal it really would be because, I'm not a PM, I'm an operator, but, in a 30-minute period, an hour period, I can vibe code at least in my opinion, a decent prototype for almost anything. So, and I probably wouldn't hire myself as a PM. So I'm just not sure how strong of a signal it would really be. But I would agree that PMs should be comfortable in creating quick prototypes for whatever they're working on.
Totally. And to your point, it's definitely not the only thing that's important, right? How you work cross-functionally, how you manage a bunch of different stakeholders, how you prioritize, how you bring in the voice of the customer and communicate with them, how you make a team more efficient and sort of push them to be the best product velocity they can. All of those things you're not going to get vibe coding.
Exactly.
To your point of a signal, hiring somebody who's supposed to be inspiring others to ship software products, if they haven't played around with a vibe coding tool and tried to build something themselves, I'd definitely question their curiosity a little bit.
Well, on the flip side too, vibe coding my public trading bot was really fun, and I learned a lot about trading, to be honest. So I think that is a cool way to build new features, and some of the things you guys mentioned and how AI is going to have an impact on all the data flow of financial information.
Totally. And obviously not the topic we're talking about, but it's also related to the hot topic of MCP right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, being able to connect to the data sets and being able to make decisions that way.
That and communicate with LLMs in a clearer way.
Great episode. Just want to say thanks to Emily and Jake and the entire team at Public for helping us put this together and getting us access to the public APIs so that we could build our prototype this week. It was super fun and learned a lot about stock trading. Don't forget to subscribe and like and click the notification bell. And thanks, everyone. Great episode.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Built this week, breaking it down. Built this week, we show you how. A fresh idea, a clever tweak. You're locked in. You built this week.